Good morning, Joyce.
How are you? Are you doing well? Are you
Morning.
doing okay?
Good. How you? Just got a quick question for you
Yes.
for the homework that's coming this week on the
Uh-huh.
ATI. On the ATI, at, for the journaling, do you also want us, besides the journaling, do you want us also to submit the report on the quiz
No.
itself? No. Okay.
Actually, I did put that down. So yes, you do need to upload the report. But I don't care what you get. Yeah, it doesn't matter what your score is. Don't keep doing it until you think you've got it better. Just take it once, do the remediations and upload remediations and the report. That would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we can journal like anyway. For example, the way that I've been journaling before is I just write down, because it says 10 journals. So I just write down what the question is, what the answer is, and then like a brief, like why I know that, or why
Yeah.
that's important, or
Right. You can journal it, concept map, anything that you like that you're familiar with. Yeah.
okay.
The point
Okay.
is this is for your learning more than it is for me to pick at you.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I'd rather have you do it where you get it.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to give these people just one more minute. We're missing a couple. Let's see if they join us. Let me make sure I didn't miss you. Haley Johnson or Alicia. I'll never get her name right, but is there an Alicia?
Alicia Fulmer.
Alicia Fulmer, I got you.
Okay, thanks.
It's the Alicia M. I don't have her. All right. All right, I think we're just missing the one. So let's move forward. I just want to tell you that no quiz today because we have a test week. So no quiz today. Let me tell you about your class time. I am going to let you out just a little early. Graduation is tonight for all those who have made it through this amazing program. They are going to be recognized tonight. It's super fun to go to graduation. So I will be heading over there. You do have your test. For those of you who have not taken the test, one, I can't go over any answers with you, but it does close 1 minute before midnight tomorrow. The average is very high. I've only gotten one person in the 70s, and I have 3 people that got 100 on it so far. It's we're doing well. Most of the people are in the 90s or high 80s that have taken it. There's a lot of you who have not taken it. I understand you have a COTAC test this week as well, right? So you got one busy week. Usually COTAC and PEDS tests fall on the same weeks. Kind of unusual to be with an OB test, but don't forget that it does, my test closed tomorrow. I will be getting your grades in soon, early in the morning. Probably by the time you are just waking up, your scores will be in. I don't want to make you wait. Let's get the grades in so you see where you are and go from there. So those will be in by about the time you're getting up on Friday morning. Any questions for me about any key concepts that you don't understand before those of you who have not taken the test? Anything that I need to review with you at this time? All right, today I cannot have any student appointments because I am participating with graduation. But tomorrow there is a tutoring session from 1 to 2. Should any of you need some more help or you have something you don't get, come to tutoring tomorrow and I'll be more than happy to get you on board. Let me tell you about your class today. We are going to only be talking about chapter 13. Chapter 13 is talking about nutrition during pregnancy. I tend to do this in a movie on this week because it's your first OB test, so I tend not to make this too difficult of a day with too much heavy content. I will be walking you through chapter 13 and telling you different parts. I want you to highlight this or know this. Your next test is week 6, which opens up June 5th. It'll be on 13, 15, 16, 15 being a heavy chapter, but we'll do that next week. So just so you kind of know the video, so I'm going to talk about 13, chapter 13, then we'll take a break, come back, we're going to watch this video. This video takes a couple through a pregnancy. The reason I like it is because it shows all kinds of good stuff in that video. It shows the egg, the fertilization, it shows the birth. This movie is graphic, people, so just so you know, there is a portion of it where they do show the inside of a penis. I'm not sure what man volunteered for that. Ooh, pick me, pick me. Yeah, not sure what man volunteered to have the inside of his penis get a photo, but you will see that inside so you can kind of tell how the sperm comes down. As if we need to see that, I think we know, but whatever. There's a lot of footage in this that's very excellent. After they do the recap, which is later in the video, there is a nude scene. I just got to prep you. Then after that, they will be talking about her going into labor, and she will deliver a baby. It's kind of an in-your-face kind of thing. If you have not seen it deliver, you will now. There's nothing left of the imagination. So this couple in the movie is sort of a nerdy couple. We'll get over it. He loves her. He really thinks she is just everything, and he loves that baby that's coming. It's okay, but he suffered Kuvad syndrome. He'll talk about it. They're at the park a lot. They are oblivious to anybody else knowing what they're doing at the park. Seriously. He's doing whale noises on her abdomen and they dance, and you're thinking, seriously, do we have to do that? But you know what? They love each other and they're in their own world, so we'll get over it. After we take our break, we'll come and watch that. So let's get started with chapter 13 and move on. Chapter 13 is talking all about nutrition. So when you can see the big one, let me know. Well, not the big one, but the PowerPoint that is taking up the screen. All right, can you see chapter 13? Good job. All right, I'd like you to highlight right off the bat under number 1, weight gain during pregnancy, 25 to 35 pounds. Please know that it will be important. As I guide you through this lecture, I will be pointing out things that you're probably going to see again. Average weight should be 25 to 35 pounds. Did somebody have a question? Okay. Be sure you're all on mute unless you have a question for me. I also will not be asking you how much weight gain per trimester. That's not that important. Let me see. Is somebody off mute?
Haley, your mic's on.
She may not be able to hear us. All right, so this picture.
Joyce, I think you have the
I did,
option to mute Haley Johnson.
Yeah, I just muted her. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. Mute. All right, this picture is kind of how they break down the weight. Now, I had a male student in my class that said, how do they get the weight on the breast? He said, I'm willing to volunteer to see if I could guess I'm sure you are, dude. No, if they really want to know the weight of the breast, they will have her put it on some form of a scale. They don't need your hands on her breast to guess. And do we really care how much the breast weighs? Seriously, we really don't. It is what it is. Now, calorie needs, if you look under 2A on your outline, you're gonna highlight that paragraph because women in childbearing years, we want them to eat 2,200 calories. Now we say, congratulations, you pregnant. Now we want you to increase by 300 calories for a total of 2,500 calories a day. Why is that important? Because you are eating to help a baby develop in utero. You're going to need to increase your calories as your body is getting bigger. Now, does 22 or 2,500 calories sound like a lot? It's really not. You go to In-N-Out for one meal and booyah, you got 2,500 calories right there. So you can, it's not that overly exaggerated, but you want to remember 2,200 calories for women in childbearing years. When they get pregnant, add 300 for a total of 2,500 calories a day. Now with protein needs, I personally don't want you to memorize anything that says grams. Don't measure Don't say, oh, I got to know how many grams they need in a day. You don't. ATI says that our students don't do well when it comes to educating the patient. So what we're doing is if a doctor says to you, you know, the patient is asking questions about protein, would you go in and talk to her? Because what do nurses do? Counsel, listen, educate. You go in there and are you going to tell a patient that really doesn't have a clue? So here's the deal, mama. I want you to eat 34 to 46 grams of protein. Okie dokie. We'll see you next time. She's going to say, what? But what I want you to know is what are the sources of protein, which I have all of them listed on your outline. So when you are educating, you're going to say to the mother, you can get protein from poultry, meat, eggs, that kind of thing. If she says, well, I don't eat meat, then we want other options. You can get it from nuts. Quinoa has all the essential amino acids in them. We would talk to her about other like beans and that kind of thing, which does have protein in it. So doctors actually get a very, very short few weeks when they are in medical school on nutrition. So it's kind of up to the nurse to educate them. With fat needs, we do need fat, which is going to be needed for essential growth of that baby's cells. What is a healthy fat, by the way? Anybody have an idea what a healthy fat is?
An avocado?
Avocado is one of the best. Avocado is what we want to get in her. Vitamin needs, as we've already talked about. Yes, mom, you got to take vitamins. I can't tell you how many times I hear a patient say, oh, you know what? I just cannot swallow those big vitamin pills. It's like a horse pill. I said, I know, but I just saw you eat like a burger in the waiting room and you got that down okay. You don't say that to the patient, but you want to. Like, I saw you take a big bite of a burger. I think you can swallow that pill. But the good point is for her is if she cannot take pills, we have it in liquid form. Yeah, mom, you need to take the pills. Calcium is important for the baby's bones and teeth. You know, we are the only species that drink another species' milk. You don't have a pig nursing off of a horse. You don't have a goat going to a lamb. All species feed their own. We're the only species that go to a cow and take cow's milk. They're finding that casein is an enzyme in cow's milk that is cancer producing. That's why they have so many nut milks out there, like almond milk, soy milk, cashew milk, oat milk, all of these different milks, because they have found that cow's milk has casein in it. So a lot of people don't drink cow's milk anymore. But we got to make sure that our baby has calcium, which you can get from dark green leafy vegetables, orange juice, nuts, beans. There are other sources. Folic acid, as we've mentioned before, is also important. That's on your outline. I want you to think of, if I asked you for a food that gives you folic acid, think of foliage, green leafy vegetables would give you folic acid. And that's on your outline as well. Iodine. Iodine is going to be essential for the thyroid gland to produce thyroxine. Iron. Iron is an important substance. However, not everyone needs to take an iron supplement. Some women complain, oh, that gives me constipation, or oh, that makes me nauseated. Well, sometimes it does. So what's another source is red meat, beef liver. I don't know how anybody could eat liver. It's got a texture that could kill a person, but whatever. There are people that can tolerate that. Poultry, dried peas, and beans. All of these are good sources. You want to take your iron, as we talked about last week, with orange juice or with vitamin C to help it absorb better. Now, there's a question under iron that I would like you to highlight. It says, if a woman has a hemoglobin of 10.5, would you consider her to be anemic? Is 10.5 anemic for a woman? Yes, it is, because the normal is going to be 12.0 to 15.5. That's the normal range. So if she said, oh, my doctor said that I have low iron, what should I eat? Red meat would be a good idea if she's a meat eater. If not, we would give her other sources. We're going to talk about it in a few minutes, iron deficiency anemia. These are women who eat laundry starch, corn starch, dirt. They eat all kinds of non-food items, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Fluoride will be important as well for strong teeth. If she's not getting fluorinated water, we can give her supplements for that. What foods have sodium in it? Are there any foods that have sodium in it? Probably the better, yeah, exactly. Probably the better question is there any food that doesn't have sodium in it? That would be an easier type question because everything has sodium in it. Why do you think McDonald's fries are so good? Because they add salt and sugar. They're addicting. I'm sure you don't leave your fries when you go to McDonald's because you want to eat them all. They're addicting. But sodium is important when we're creating and building a baby because it acts as a major electrolyte to maintain body fluid. As far as zinc go, we need that for DNA and RNA. Where do you get that from? Liver, eggs, seafood, that kind of thing.
Hey, question for you, Joyce.
Yes.
So, I mean, sodium is in everything, like you said, but you don't want like a pregnant woman eating like top of ramen every day, right?
No, you do
'Cause,
not.
I mean, it's got lots of sodium, so it provides
Yeah.
that, but it doesn't provide anything else.
That's right. It has no nutrients to it. Any of those kind of pasta dishes have no nutrients to them. Good point, John, because when a woman hits 28 or around 20 weeks and start retaining fluid or water in the body, we worry about preeclampsia with that. And one of the things restricting her is sodium. Mom, you can't have sodium. That's going to make it worse. Everything has sodium in it unless you're cooking and you don't put it in or add it, which, good point, John, very good point. Fluid needs. We need fluid for a couple of reasons. One, it builds up that amniotic fluid. Two, it prevents you from preterm labor. That uterus gets dehydrated and cramp. Let's hydrate that uterus up and the cramping may go away, especially if it's Braxton Hicks, because that's false labor. You'll hear different people say different things about the fluid needs. We're going to stick with 8 8-ounce glasses of water in a day. Fiber is important. A question came up this morning in my class that said, what if you have an allergy to all fruits and vegetables? Where would you get your fiber from? Well, like we mentioned, you can get it from beans, quinoa. There's lots of other areas, but basically what we would do to figure out what this mom has is trying to do an elimination diet. If she says, I don't know what I'm allergic to. When I used to teach peds, we did this when we were talking about children, but you would do this on an adult as well. Let's say that you give your patient strawberries, toast with peanut butter, milk, and scrambled eggs. Child or the adult has a reaction to the food. An elimination diet is okay. The next day, you're going to get the same breakfast, but I'm going to eliminate one. I will take out the peanut butter and wow, the child's doing fine, the patient's doing fine. We know it's the peanuts. But with all of those different foods, they could be gluten sensitivity from the bread, nut allergy, strawberry allergy. So this is an elimination diet that we can do with our families to figure out what they are needing. So we can help them with fiber. Foods to avoid, obviously, is alcohol, artificial sweeteners, and weight loss. supplements because the babies have poor growth with those. So something that I frequently ask my students, if I were a provider and a patient came into me and she's gaining weight or not gaining weight, what do you think the best thing for me to do with her would be? So I know what she's eating.
Have her do a food diary?
Yeah.
Maybe write down what she's eating?
Yeah, that would be really good. I want a diary of what you've been eating. You can also immediately ask her, let me do a 24-hour recall with you. What did you have yesterday morning to this morning? So I'm going to ask you guys, anybody want to volunteer what they ate since yesterday morning to this morning? There's no judgment here. It's just strictly informational. So I had 4 students do that the last 3 classes that I've had. Interesting how they all eat. So, okay, peeps, anybody want to volunteer their diet? All right, Andrew, shoot.
I kind of have a diet where I measure my food. So I kind of meal prep and stuff. So I usually have like 70 grams of oatmeal, a 3-egg omelet, 8 ounces of sweet potatoes, 12 ounces of chicken, 6 ounces of salmon. And I think
Is that
like,
your breakfast?
no, that's just for the day.
Okay, got it.
You want me to like list it in order?
No, you're good. You're doing fine.
Yeah. And then like a dinner with like some vegetables and rice and stuff. Usually like 2 cups of rice and 2 cups of vegetables and a protein of some sort.
Yeah, good job. Excellent. Anybody else want to share with me? All right, Wendy, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, I'll share.
Good
So
job.
let's see, yesterday was Tuesday. I had a piece of bacon. I had a couple cups of coffee. Then I had, I think I might have had some chicken. I had some black bean, tomato, and cheese like tacos that I made. And then dinner last night, what did I have for dinner? I don't remember. I've slept since then. And then today I had salmon and like roasted carrots and broccoli.
Good job.
And I think that's it. And some more coffee.
You haven't eaten this morning?
No, I just ate like in between classes. So I didn't eat
Okay.
breakfast this morning. I'm not a huge breakfast eater.
All right. Anybody else want to share? One more.
You want to know what I had to eat yesterday?
I would love to know.
Okay, day 2 of clinicals in a row. Started
Oh.
off with a monster pipeline punch.
All right. Yeah.
I got a burger from the cafeteria. I remember eating when I got home, but I don't remember what it was because I was that tired.
I'm sure you were. Yeah, I got to tell you, I had
Potatoes and vegetables and measuring in ounces. That's not, I'm not that Andrew.
Hey, you know what? Everybody eats differently. So I got to tell you about the student I had about 3 years ago. We're sitting in room 204, and I asked this question. Hey, I'm going to do a 24-hour recall on you. He raises his hand. He said, oh, pick me, pick me. I got to tell you what I ate. Well, after he told us all, everybody was like, what? They couldn't believe it. The only reason I can remember it is I wrote it down because it was so unusual. But he said, here's the deal. And I had him on a Wednesday morning class. He said, Monday night, you got to remember, I worked all night. So I got off yesterday morning on Tuesday morning. But he said, Joyce, I had to come to the school. I had SCE all day and my COTAC class. So he said, I went through McDonald's yesterday morning and they have a big breakfast with pancakes and all kinds of good food. And he said, I ate that. But then yesterday at 10 o'clock in the morning, I was starting to fall asleep and I couldn't stay awake. And at break, I went over to Zonk's Cafe and I got a Coke and some cookies and chips and ate all of that. I said, okay, and what about lunch? He said, oh, lunch was great. It was so good. He said, I went to Subway and I got a foot-long Subway sandwich with everything in it, with chips. And he said, Joyce, do you know that they have cookies there? I said, yes, I do. He said, well, I got cookies and a Coke. I said, fabulous. Then he said at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, yesterday, I'm dying. I've been up for 24 hours. I was so tired. I went to the Zonk's Cafe again. This time I got a Coke and 2 bags of chips and 2 bags of candy. And they had cookies, so I got one. All right. And then I said, did you eat dinner last night? He said, hey, I was so tired. I didn't feel like going home to cook. So he said, I figured I've had so much other type of food, I'm going to have a pizza. He said, so I stopped and I bought a pizza, a large one, and a Coke, and I ate the whole pizza and the Coke. All right, dude. And then I said, and then he said, I went to bed. I said, well, of course, who could stay awake with that? And then he said, I said, this morning, did you eat? He said, you know, that breakfast was so good at McDonald's yesterday. I drove through again this morning and I got that. The whole class is like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe you're still alive. And I said, no, we're not doing a judgment thing here. I only have one question. Did you urinate at all yesterday? Because I said, you took in enough sodium for a week. And he said, you know, now that you think about it, I don't think I did very often. I said, when we take a break in a few minutes, I would go to Zonk's Cafe and I would get a large thing of water and drink that down. It'll do wonders for your bladder. Your bladder will thank you. So we don't criticize our patients, we just ask them, hey, tell me a 24-hour recall. Now the people in our class, Andrew and Wendy and those that shared, you can see the difference of how they eat. One person weighs, one does not. So that's all right. This is how we know that our pregnant woman and what they're doing. All right, if she's confused, you're gonna let her know that she can go to choosemyplate.gov and they're gonna guide them and tell them what to eat. Because some women will say, I don't know what's healthy. Like John said, is top ramen okay? No, there's no nutritional value to that at all. All it's gonna do is blow you up with the sodium. But this will give you an idea. All right, this doctor is going to tell you what pregnant women should and should not be eating. Let's just review with him for a minute and then we're going to move forward.
Hi, after all, your women have to make some changes in their diet. Well, today, Dr. Alan Green, author of Raising Baby Green, is here to show us some examples of what foods to avoid and what to include. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Julie. Great to be with you today.
It's always great to have you, Doctor. And first, let's start with some foods we should avoid. These are some things that we eat every day when we're not pregnant, but suddenly when we are pregnant, they're not okay anymore.
Right, the developing baby is more vulnerable than we adults are, and the placenta does an amazing job at nourishing and protecting the baby, but there are a few things that you have to pay attention to.
Okay, fish number one. Talk to us about which fish we should be avoiding.
So there are a few fish you need to avoid because of the mercury and PCB pollutants in there. Things like swordfish and shark, tilefish, king mackerel you want to avoid.
Okay.
Also, raw fish, raw sushi or raw oysters you want to avoid because of infections.
What's okay?
There's a bunch of fish that's great for the developing baby and for you. Things like wild salmon, mahi-mahi, bay scallops. And in Raising Baby Green, I have a long list of all the great fish you can eat.
Okay, listeria can be very dangerous for a woman who is pregnant. Tell us what foods contain it. What should we be looking for?
So listeria is a bacteria that can be devastating for a developing baby. And the thing that's different about it is it can thrive in a refrigerator where most bacteria just don't do well there. So soft cheeses are one place to be concerned about. I would avoid brie, camembert, any soft cheese or any cheese with blue veins in it could have the bacteria in there. Another place you can find it is in luncheon meats. Things like cold cuts, hot dogs before they're cooked could have it in there. Leftovers in general could have Listeria
Really?
in there. Yeah.
So, as a rule, should a pregnant woman not eat leftovers?
So the thing you can do is, as long as it's heated to steaming right before you eat it, it's fine. But I wouldn't eat prepared salads from a deli counter, leftovers, these meats, unless they're cooked right away.
So, with other foods, sometimes is it a matter of just, like beef, for example, just cooking them a little bit longer than we normally would to make them safe?
That's right. Besides Listeria, there are other infections that can be real problems. E. coli, Salmonella, toxoplasmosis can be tough for developing babies. So with ground beef, you want to make sure that it's cooked so there's no pink left in the
So,
middle.
we're showing a burger right now that is pretty rare.
Right.
That's not okay.
Not during pregnancy.
Okay, well done, medium well?
You want no pink visible. That's the guideline for ground beef.
Okay, what else?
And then eggs also, you need to make sure they're cooked so that the yolk and the white is not runny.
There are some other sources of raw eggs that we might not think of.
Exactly. Things like hollandaise sauce.
Right.
Cookie dough is another one.
A lot of people like to eat raw cookie dough, but that's a no-no when you're pregnant.
No when you're pregnant.
But okay to cook the cookies.
But okay to cook the cookies.
Okay.
Enjoy the cookies.
And of course, it's always been recommended to avoid alcohol and to avoid caffeine, but is there any amount of alcohol or caffeine that is okay?
There is no amount of alcohol that's safe for developing baby. And as for caffeine, it's a little controversial. We know that over 1 cup a day, over 150 milligrams a day, does increase the risk to harm to the baby. 1 cup a day, some data says there's a problem, a lot says there's not. But more than that is certainly not a good idea.
All right, let's move on to things that we should be eating
Yes.
and eating a lot of during our pregnancy. You recommend there's some certain nutrients that you need to have in your diet.
Right, during pregnancy, your nutritional needs change because you're building a whole new body inside of you. And there's 4 nutrients, vitamins and minerals in particular, the needs go way up. And the first one of those is folate. And you hear about it to prevent neural tube defects.
Sure.
And yes, it's good for the brain and developing nervous system. But every time you make a new copy of DNA, you need folate to do it right.
Where do we find folate?
And the name gives you a clue. Foliage is the place.
Aha,
Green leafy
we have it
vegetables
right
is
here.
the best source of folate.
Okay.
The second one to look for is iron. A pregnant woman's own blood supply goes up by 1/3 during pregnancy, and the baby has to make all of his or her blood from scratch, and that scratch includes iron.
Okay.
And so green leafy vegetables, again, are a great source. Beef is another good source of iron.
Long as you cook it well, right,
And
okay.
organic for beef, I think it's a good choice too.
Okay.
Vitamin B6 is the next one. That it helps in making serotonin and other neurotransmitters that can help moms be happy during the pregnancy and postpartum time. So make sure you get enough. 1 baked potato a day will give you all the extra B6 you need, or 1 banana a day would do it as well.
Okay, what's next?
Next is zinc, and that's the 4th one of these, the last of those nutrients. And zinc is something that's also used in 100 different processes in the body, including helping the immune system function well.
So very important.
Right, and you can find that in beef or chicken. You can also find it in mushrooms, in beans, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds are good sources of zinc.
Okay.
Now, there are 4 other nutrients that a significant number of American women are not getting enough, and I'm very concerned about these.
Okay, tell us about them.
First one of those is calcium.
So important.
It's really important. If you're not getting enough, that's going to come out of your own bones and cause
Okay.
real problems there. So
Get
you
enough
definitely want to
calcium.
get calcium. So milk is good. That's another one to do organic. Next one is choline, a nutrient a lot of women haven't even heard of. It influences the baby's ability to learn and particularly memory. It comes from choline, and many women are not getting enough. Eggs are a great source of choline.
Okay, next one.
Next one is DHA.
Important for everyone, whether you're pregnant or
Whether
not.
you're pregnant or not, but the highest needs in life are during pregnancy, and sadly, it's the time people get the least. Wild salmon is a great place for that, or mahi-mahi is another good source. You can also now get it organic milk with DHA.
Okay, now water is important for people to drink every day. 8 glasses of water you hear all the time, but what about pregnant women? Do they need more of that?
More water for pregnant women, 3 liters a day is the target to go for. I'd just recommend getting a stainless steel canteen and carrying it around with you.
And finally, Dr. Green, how important are prenatal vitamins?
Prenatal vitamins are very important throughout pregnancy, but what most women don't know is the most important days are before the pregnancy test even turns positive. So I suggest taking them if you might get pregnant.
Okay, if you're thinking about it, start taking them.
That's right, and you can get them over the counter wherever vitamins are sold.
Good to know. Dr. Green,
All right, so in this particular chapter 13, unless I tell you that PowerPoint slide is going to be important, and 2 of them will be, which I'll show you, the rest are for your reading enjoyment. So let me go through this. First off, in your lifestyle, family plays an important part. what are you used to eating? What is your lifestyle? Do you eat more fast food? Do you not eat fast food? Andrew, are you the only one in your family that weighs your food, or is your whole family doing that? Just you? Yeah. And that is a family lifestyle, which is okay. You know, financially, they keep saying, well, you should eat organic food. You should eat as much organic as you can. Can you all afford organic fruit and vegetables? No, it's pricey. However, if you look on the web and you go under the Dirty Dozen, not the movie, The Dirty Dozen, that's an old movie, but if you put in the Dirty Dozen of food, it gives you the food that should be eaten organically. One of them is apples that I can remember, and celery. I remember those two that carry the most pesticide. Now, would you tell us somebody that can't afford organic? Nope. Do not eat apples. No, you're just going to tell them wash them well, and then you're fine. You wouldn't say you don't eat them. But if you were to lose your job, let's say, gee, I'm really sorry, but we have to lay you off on Friday. A lot of people heard those words this last year through the pandemic. A lot of people lost their jobs. Now, how do I feed my family? What's the cheapest thing to buy? Our boxed food. Macaroni and cheese is less than $1, has no nutritional value to it, but it's a stick to the ribs kind of thing. John mentioned Top Ramen or any of those. No nutritional value to them at all, but they make you full for a short period of time. People that are struggling financially have these issues. So if you are, I would certainly recommend food banks or getting onto WIC or any of those for those of you who are struggling, or Medicaid will help you as well with food stamps. Culturally, we do have to ask our patients about what they eat culturally. Our Asian population, being from California, very diverse culture. We had Asian patients that would not eat any food except boiled chicken and white rice. They do that for 6 weeks. Culturally, they feel that that helps their body heal and their milk come in. No flavoring to it, no spices, no nothing. Well, to accommodate that in labor and delivery and postpartum, we had little trays of boiled chicken and white rice for those patients. I took care of one Asian gal, more westernized. She said, I've got a problem. My husband just went to go pick up my mother-in-law at the airport. She's coming from an Asian country. I can't remember which one. And she said, when she gets here, she's very old school. She will not let me eat anything but chicken and rice for the next 6 weeks. So I'm asking you, would you please bring me 2 or 3 regular trays of food, please? Because when she comes, all I'm getting is chicken and rice for 6 weeks. She said, I've already told my husband, when your mother goes to bed, you're going to fast food. I cannot be eating chicken and rice for 6 weeks, but that's what she did. So culturally, we have to ask. I always ask the class as well, do any of you eat anything culturally? For example, one of my students said that her father was from Poland, and every meal they would eat a Polish bread. One of my students this morning said every meal they have a tortilla. No matter what they make, they eat it in a tortilla. Any of you practice anything different when you are eating?
Joyce,
Yes,
have you heard of intermittent fasting?
I have, yes.
Yeah, well, my wife does that. I was wondering if that's like a good thing for pregnancy, or if that's like something you want to avoid, because I mean, you're going without meals during the day.
It depends on how long she's doing intermittent fasting for.
Well, she goes till like 2 p.m. without anything.
Okay, and then what does she eat after that?
A lot.
Well, yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Is she feeling all right? Does she do all right with
But
that?
like she's trained her body so that like that's the time of day that her body gets hungry.
Was she doing
So-
that before the pregnancy?
I mean, she's not pregnant, but
Oh,
we may or not be preparing for that. So
okay. They're usually your provider, once she does get pregnant, John, will probably encourage her to eat 3 meals and 2 snacks. They don't have to be huge, but you could eat smaller meals, mostly to maintain her blood sugar and for the baby to move. If she goes to bed at night and then doesn't eat till 2 p.m. the next day, that's a long time for no nutrients going back and forth to a growing baby. So they would say you could, I'm not pregnant, it's no big deal, that's totally fine. But pregnant with a growing fetus, they're going to encourage her to eat at least 6 meals a day, or at least 5, 3 main meals, 2 snacks, because you got to maintain the baby growing, cell division, that kind of thing, all that time. And if you go at night, if she ate dinner at, let's say, 6, and then doesn't eat all night and nothing until 2 p.m., that's going to be a struggle on her body, especially as that baby gets bigger. So intermittent fasting is totally normal when you're not pregnant. When you are pregnant, not that advisable. It's too long.
okay, thanks,
Good.
Joyce.
Yeah, you bet. Good question, John. Excellent question. All right. I won't be asking you anything off here, but look at your patient. You can tell if she's poor nutrition or if she's doing all right. Some nursing diagnoses, and there is your 3 main meals and 2 snacks. Ask her what she's eating and is she eating a balanced diet? We know that when you are pregnant, it takes a team. You're going to have nurses, doctors, dietitians, anesthesia, lab, physical therapy. You may have a whole team of people working to get you to have a normal baby. There's info about the prenatal vitamin, nothing I would be particularly asking you about. But here's a new word for you, pica. Pica. One of my patients, one of my students this morning in class said that she had pica. She ate carrots straight out of the ground without washing them. She loved the dirt. This is women that will, one of my other students a year ago said the best part of her day was she would go outside and lick all the rocks in the yard. She loved it. Somebody else said in class, oh, you know what? I ate all my erasers off my pencils. She showed me her pencils. The key thing is if you see a woman eating laundry starch, corn starch, clay, dirt, or excessive ice chips, you can bank on the fact that they have iron deficiency anemia. That is a classic sign. I went with somebody somewhere one time. She runs over to the, on the bottom of the car, how it gets that snow and ice stuck behind a wheel. She went and yanks it off and started sucking profusely on it. I said, girlfriend, that is so nasty. Have your doctor worked you up for any iron problems? And she said, well, I'm going in today. Well, tell him that you just sucked a bunch of ice off somebody's nasty car. That'll get his attention. But that is pica when you eat non-food items. And guys, if you have women that are pregnant that do this, they need to get their iron checked. They've got to get their iron deficiency anemia.
Hey, Joyce, does that happen with any other deficiencies other than iron?
Well, the iron deficiency would be the big one. They've done studies on children, not so much adults, but on children in orphanages where they would say, okay, we're going to see about malnutrition. I don't know why they would do that on children, but they did. They would take these children and give them so much food to eat a day, and then they'd add other things, and they would test them to see what their body was deficient in. Interesting enough, when they very first did the study, all the children ran over to the treats. They wanted the treats. I want the sugar. As time went on, they all migrated over to the table that had fruit and vegetables. Their body was craving something like that. And so, yeah, we can, other deficiencies we can identify, but with iron deficiency specifically in a pregnancy, that's because they're eating non-food items. Good question. Diminished gastric mobility, we've already talked about this. We know that with the effect of progesterone on the body and that weight of the baby, it can press on the bowels and cause constipation. Let's increase the water, let's increase the fiber, let's give her a stool softener, and she'll be better. All right, people, this is the slide that you need to have for the next test. All right, pyrosis is a new word. That means heartburn. That is under 5C on your outline, heartburn. If I were to say to you, what can we do for somebody who's suffering from heartburn or pyrosis? The answer is right there. Eat small, frequent meals. Sleep on the left side with 2 pillows to elevate upper torso. Wait 2 hours after eating. Avoid fatty, fried foods, coffee, anything that can add that heartburn, especially like tomato products, sodas, anything like that. Now, girls, I have to tell you, for those of you who have been pregnant, and I've heard women still say this, oh my gosh, no wonder I had so much heartburn. You have so much hair. People, no part of that kid's hair was up here in your esophagus. That baby was encapsulated in a bag of water in your uterus, in your abdomen. No part of that hair is coming up forward. You had heartburn because of what you ate. Maybe you lay down too soon, or also remember your stomach gets displaced as the uterus grows. So that will cause heartburn. I know many of you have lived on Tums or an antacid most of your pregnancy, but that's why. The other thing, hypercholesterolemia can be a family issue. However, if I were to say to you, what can we do to reduce our cholesterol? Exercise daily, which means go for a half-hour walk a day. Eat oat cereal, broil, grill, or bake. Minimal salad oils. We've already discussed avocado instead of butter. And omega-3 fish would be salmon. One of the students this morning asked me, how do I feel about eating salmon eggs? They said it's very high in DHA and it's very good and nutritious. It was brought up that, well, if you're already eating raw sushi, highly likely that they probably put salmon eggs on top of that. She said they're delicious. They're really, really good. I said, I probably won't do that myself, but she said they're good and they're supposed to be nutritious. There you are. Just throwing that out for information. Now, we do have women that have a lot of unique needs. Adolescents, I really want to go with my friends. I want to eat burgers. They're going for pizza. Preeclampsia is more prevalent in our teenagers and older mamas than, and you don't stay on your diet, it can cause problems. If you're over 40, you might already have some bone loss, or you may have a decreased kidney function, which can be a problem. You all have a stressful lifestyle, all of you do. If you are pregnant, that can make it even worse. I can't eat when I want. I can't lay down. I can't take a nap. It's stressful. If you suffer from decreased nutritional stores, I'm going to finish this chapter and then we'll take a quick break in about 5 or 6 minutes. Decreased nutritional stores is when you have your babies too close. Your body hasn't recovered from one baby and now you're having another one. Underweight. If you are underweight, let's say that you only gained 15 pounds in that pregnancy, you're likely going to have an underweight baby, because what's the normal weight gain? 25 to 35. If you are that mom sitting on the couch looking like that, first off, we discussed that if you have a chubby body, you're going to have a chubby vagina. If they let her try to deliver vaginally, she's really going to have a problem getting that baby out. Even if she has a C-section, they're gonna have to tape that pannus or the hanging stomach to up on the top of the bed. We'll talk about that. We talk about C-sections. But vegetarian, what's the vitamin that vegetarians are missing mostly?
Iron.
And
B12.
B12, yes, and B12. Usually you have to take a supplement if you are not getting that from food. PKU is when you are, if a mom is positive for PKU, she can cause her baby to have microcephaly. IUGR, which is intrauterine growth restriction. The baby is too small. Or neurologic problems. This is also known as maple syrup syndrome. If a mom has it, the problem is they can't metabolize protein. If a baby has it, they can only get so much formula, so much protein as they grow up. So what they have now, which is really great, is FHE. FHE is a formula for babies that are PKU positive. What tests do we do? Prick their heel, and we fill in the circles with their blood on that card. If you have multiple babies in there, of course, that's gonna need an increase in food. If you wanna smoke, that'll be a problem. Your baby will be premature or small for gestational age. They used to say, oh, it's okay to have a little wine at night. Well, your little wine might be that big, or you may think you're telling them they can drink a little wine, their little glass might be like that. So now they say no alcohol at all. We are worried about culturally prepared food. Is it raw? Does it have some of the problems that could be a problem for the pregnancy? Lactose intolerant, please highlight lactose intolerant because you'll want to know what the assessment is. And the assessment is GI problems. But this should be on your outline. When you are doing an assessment, ask if they have a history of kidney stones. Because somebody that has lactose intolerance and then you're going to give them a calcium supplement, their kidney stones could come back. So please highlight that on there. With bariatric surgery, they cannot eat enough to maintain a good diet for nutritional need of the baby. Okay, very last, hyperemesis. Who do we know famous that has hyperemesis? Do you know anybody famous? There is a famous person that was on the news a lot about her pregnancies. That was Princess Kate. Princess Kate had 3 pregnancies that she had severe hyperemesis. Now, if you're a princess and live in a castle, they'll come to you and take good care of you. For the rest of you, you're going to go to the hospital, get an IV with a 16 or an 18 gauge angiocath. We're going to start D5LR on you. We're going to give you a bolus. We're going to get the lights turned down. And we're going to run that bolus at around 250 mLs an hour for a while. Why do we need the glucose in there? For baby. Can any of you think with the vomiting and constant vomiting, a vitamin that they would be super deficient in?
Potassium.
It could be potassium. And John, I'm glad you brought that up because when somebody is confused, which they get confused with a lack of B1, which is thiamine. So in their IV, you may see a yellow bag. That's just the B1 that they've added. You don't want a pregnant woman to be confused because then she could fall. Now, John brought up a really good thing, and I'm going to correct you just a little bit. If I were to ask you, if a mom was put on TPN, what is something that we would monitor? A lot of students feel it is potassium. A lot of people say, well, if she's on TPN, we should monitor potassium. The answer is glucose. You've got to maintain a normal level of glucose for her and the baby. So that is on the last sentence of your outline, so you may want to highlight that as well. All right, people. I think we have had enough of this. Let's take a break until 5 after 12 and come back and we'll watch our video and be done. All right, people, come back to me and we will watch this video and get you out of here. So once again, this couple is a little unusual and it's all right. They love each other. They're at the park a lot. They don't care who watches them, but the footage that they have in this video is really good. There are some dry parts to it that kind of drag, but it'll be okay. We'll get through it. So let me share that with you. By the way, this was done in the state of California. So you will see people that you don't normally see dressed like this. Can you see on the screen Life's Greatest Miracles?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
People do all sorts of things to get attention. And why? It may be the last thing on his mind, but this man's body is working toward this. Whether we're thinking about it or not, our bodies want to make babies. And our bodies are very good at it. Around the world, about 365,000 new babies get made every day. But as ordinary as it seems, creating a new human being is no simple feat. Just think of it. No matter who you are, once upon a time, you looked like this. From a single cell, you built a body that has 100 trillion cells. You made hundreds of different kinds of tissues and dozens of organs, including a brain that allows you to do remarkable things. How did you do it? Today, we can look closer than ever before into the womb, into a cell, into the essence of life itself. Not only can we see what's happening, but now we're beginning to see how it happens. The forces that build the embryo, the molecules that drive this remarkable change. We're uncovering the most intimate details of how life is created. The secrets behind life's greatest miracle. You might think all the people on this beach are just working on their suntans. But beneath all that sunscreen, under the skin, there's a frenzy of activity. Without even thinking about it, almost all the adults here are busy, trying to reproduce. They can't help themselves. The urge to procreate is a fundamental part of life. Not just for us, but for all life. Why is this urge so universal? At least some blame can probably go to this. DNA, the molecule that carries our genes, the chemical instructions for building our bodies and keeping us alive, all wrapped up in a tiny winding staircase. DNA has run the show for more than 4 billion years for one main reason. It's very good at making copies of itself. The copies can get passed to a new generation in a couple of ways. If you're a bacterium, you might be into cloning, making exact replicas of yourself. All your descendants have the same DNA and, except for an occasional mutant, are just like you. It's simple, it works, and genetically, it's extremely boring. It can also be dangerous. If humans were all clones, everyone would have the exact same immune system, and one successful parasite could wipe us all out. Fortunately, there's sex. The method of choice for 99.9% of the organisms on Earth, more complex than bacteria. With sexual reproduction, two individuals each provide some DNA. Most animals put it into sperm or eggs. If the two can get together, a new being will be created, one that's different from its parents and everybody else. Where there's sex, there's variety. And when it comes to survival of the fittest, variety has a definite advantage. All this comes at a price. Sexual reproduction may be popular, but it's also quite tricky. To get an idea of how tricky, just take a peek inside a man's testicle. It's packed with tiny tubes coiled into bundles. Stretched out, they could cover half a mile. Inside all this tubing, the average man is churning out 1,000 new sperm every second. That's about 100 million new sperm every day, and more than 2 trillion over a lifetime. And here's the tricky part. Each and every sperm is one of a kind, carrying a unique genetic package. How is this possible? How can one person produce so many different combinations of genes? The answer lies in the very special way we make sperm and eggs, a process called meiosis. In almost every cell of your body, you have 30,000 or more different genes, spread out on very long strands of DNA, called chromosomes. Most cells have 2 versions of every gene on a total of 46 chromosomes. Exactly half of those, 23, came from your mom, and 23 came from your dad. They come in pairs, where the partners are very similar but not quite the same. The only time they get together is during meiosis. Here's how it works inside a testicle that's making sperm. First, each chromosome makes an exact copy of itself, keeping it attached at one point. They condense, creating an X shape. Now the chromosome partners get together, and the 2, or actually 4, will embrace. They cling so closely, big chunks carrying whole bunches of genes get exchanged between the partners. The cell then divides twice, each time pulling the pairs apart. The final result is a sperm, or an egg cell, with 23 chromosomes, half the normal number. By itself, the cell is incomplete, but it still holds incredible promise, because every chromosome now carries a combination of genes that has never existed before. All this gene shuffling means that within a single species, there can be an enormous amount of diversity. And the more diversity, the better the odds are that someone will survive to create a new generation.
This is my mom and dad, and your mom and dad.
Mom and dad, their wedding days, and you definitely have your mom's eyes. You could see I definitely have my dad's eyebrows.
You do have your dad's eyebrows. Your mom's.
Melinda Tate Irwegas and her husband Sergio are expecting their first baby.
Younger. Here's mom and dad with me and my brother.
Yeah.
Sister hadn't come along yet, but this is what our little boy might look like. That's me. And
Their unborn child carries a mixture of genes not just from them, but from all their ancestors.
it's like the spitting image.
Mm-hmm.
You look so much like your mother here.
But which genes got passed on from whom, right now is anybody's guess.
Because here you are, and this is what our little girl might look like. I wonder if the baby will have the characteristic eyebrows that comes from my father's side of the family. We call them the Irwegas eyebrows.
Or that it won't have my dad's nose.
Your nose.
We talked about having children a lot. He's been saying 5, 6, and I was like, well, let's start with 1,
Yeah.
2, maybe 3.
The baby likes the water.
In their efforts to pass on their genes, Melinda and Sergio pursued dramatically different strategies.
I can't wait for the baby to come.
Like most men, Sergio has been constantly producing sperm since puberty.
Are you?
But Melinda created all her eggs when she looked like this, a fetus in her mother's womb. Within a couple of months, she created several million eggs. And then, the eggs began to die. At the age of 31, Melinda may only have a few thousand left. But that's okay, because inside an ovary, as opposed to a testicle, it's quality, not quantity, that counts. Every month, one of a woman's 2 ovaries selects an immature egg cell to lavish with attention. Hundreds of support cells tend the egg, feeding it until it grows fat. When it's ready, the whole entourage, the egg along with its helpers, oozes out of the ovary. Waiting for them is the open end of the fallopian tube, which leads to the uterus. Its tentacles capture the egg and pull it inside. The egg is swept along by muscular contractions of the tube, as well as the constant swaying of tiny cilia. The egg has everything it needs to start a new life, except for one thing: DNA from a sperm. And it has to get it fast. If the egg is not fertilized within a few hours, it will die. With sex, there will always be pressure to meet and impress a mate. When it comes to actually choosing a partner, there's a lot to consider. For us, it might be somewhat more complicated than picking the one that smells best. But there's no doubt that the process can be heavily influenced by chemistry, natural drugs that flood the brain.
Mi amor, mi amor, mi amor. Mi amor, mi amor, mi amor. Mi amor, mi amor, mi amor.
When love is in the air, the body can undergo some dramatic changes. Signals from the brain speed up the metabolism of glucose. As a result, body temperature rises, skin sweats, heartbeat and breathing get faster. In a man, hormones cue blood vessels to relax, allowing the spongy tissue in the penis to fill with blood. At the height of sexual excitement,
This is where they show the inside of the penis here.
millions of sperm are squeezed out of storage and swept up by fluid gushing from several glands, including the prostate. The flood carries them into a 15-inch long tube, looping into the abdomen and then out through the penis. It's only about a teaspoon of liquid, but it typically contains about 300 million sperm. They are immediately in peril. The vagina is acidic, so the sperm must escape or die. They start to swim, at least some of them. Even in a healthy man, 60% of the sperm can be less than perfect. Like this one, with 2 tails. For these guys, the journey is over. But what about the rest? What are the chances that one tiny sperm will reach and fertilize an egg? Sperm are often portrayed as brave little warriors forging their way through hostile terrain to conquer the egg. Nothing could be further from the truth. For every challenge the sperm face, success is to a great extent controlled by the woman's body and even the egg itself. Take the sperm's first obstacle, the cervix.
Okay, that's the cervix, and that's the mucus plug that we've talked about, right in the center of that cervix. At a certain time of the month, it gets thin and watery to allow the sperm to get up in there, but that's what a cervix looks like.
Passageway to the uterus. Most of the time, it's locked shut, plugged with mucus that keeps bacteria and sperm out. But for just a few days a month, around ovulation, the mucus becomes watery and forms tiny channels that guide the sperm through. Arriving inside the uterus, the sperm are still about 6 inches away from their goal, at least a 2-day swim. But undulations of the uterine muscles propel the sperm into the fallopian tube within 30 minutes. Even a sperm that reaches the tube in record time has no guarantee of fertilizing an egg. There may be no egg there. Ovulation could still be days away. It's the slowpokes, caught up in the cilia lining the tube, who may have a better chance. It's probably here that chemicals in the woman's body alter the sperm's outer coating. Only those sperm that are altered can get a date with the egg. The sperm are released gradually over the course of a few days, so at any given time, only a couple hundred sperm will move on. If all goes well, then farther up the tube, they'll find the egg. But it's heavily chaperoned by support cells. And the chaperones are picky. Only some of the sperm are let through. Those who make it will face yet another challenge. Underneath the cloud of cells, the egg itself is encased in a thick protein shell called the zona. To To fertilize the egg, the sperm must break through the zona, but even the strongest can't do it by brute force alone. The egg demands a proper introduction. Proteins protruding from the sperm's cap must hook up precisely with a set of proteins on the egg's surface. If they match, the sperm is held fast and undergoes a dramatic transformation. It sheds its outer coating, releasing powerful enzymes that dissolve a hole in the zona, allowing the sperm to push its way through. The final hurdle passed, the sperm still does not thrust its way into the egg itself. Rather, the membranes of the two cells fuse, and the egg draws the entire contents of the sperm inside.
I don't know. We weren't being as careful as we should have been. And October came around and I was a day late. And actually I was having some other problems with my wrist. And we went to the doctor, and the doctor had asked me, he was like, well, are you pregnant? You know, because he wanted to do an x-ray of my wrist.
Yeah.
And I said, no. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, I don't know. I decided that I was better check this out. Sure enough, it was positive. And when he came home, I was like...
I could tell she had something to tell me.
And so I was like, well, you better sit down. And he just...
It was something that we had discussed,
Yeah.
but hadn't anticipated until about 2 more years down the road. So when she told me, yeah, I was ecstatic.
We were ready. We were definitely ready, even if it was a little early.
Ready or not, once sperm and egg get together, they have their own agenda: to create a viable embryo. Their chances aren't great. It's estimated that more than 50% of all fertilized eggs fail to develop. If it's going to survive, the egg has a lot of work to do. First, it orders the zona to lock out all other sperm. And then the egg must finish meiosis, expelling half of its chromosomes into this tiny pouch called a polar body. With the door closed behind it, the single sperm already inside releases its precious cargo. The sperm's 23 chromosomes stretch out in the roomy, welcoming egg. The chromosomes of sperm and egg approach each other, and then the cell divides. Since the moment the sperm entered the egg, 24 hours have passed. All this time, the fertilized egg is moving down the fallopian tube toward the uterus. Every few hours, the cells divide. 4, 8, 16, gradually creating the building blocks needed to construct an embryo. On rare occasions, the tiny cluster of cells splits into 2 groups and creates 2 embryos, identical twins. But most of the time, the cells stick together. They must complete just the right number of cell divisions before they arrive in the uterus, about 5 days after fertilization. What started as a large single cell has divided into just over 100 much smaller cells. But they're still trapped within the hard shell of the zona. Now called a blastocyst, the bundle of cells must do 2 things to survive: break out of the zona and find a source of nourishment. At the beginning of the 6th day, it orchestrates an escape. It releases an enzyme that eats through the zona, and the ball of cells squeezes out. Free at last, the blastocyst lands on the blood-rich lining of the mother's uterus. It has just passed one hurdle, but is immediately presented with another. For in fact, it is now in very grave danger. Stripped of its protective coating, the blastocyst could be attacked by the mother's immune system as a foreign invader. White blood cells which swarm in to devour it. In its own self-defense, the ball of cells produces several chemicals that suppress the mother's immune system inside the uterus, in effect convincing the mother to treat it like a welcome guest. Then it is free to get to work. Searching for food and oxygen, cells from the blastocyst reach down and burrow into the surrounding tissue. Eventually, they pull the entire bundle down into the uterine lining. And sooner or later, the mother will notice.
Even brushing my teeth would make me, the minty flavor was just like gross and make me feel nauseous. And I would get up and I would try to eat something, and if anything smelled off slightly, then it made me nauseous.
My mother has told me stories of how my father had gone through morning sickness. And of course, that never really registered until the first time it started happening to me.
He literally he would get really, really nauseous and upset and actually get physically ill sometimes. I mean,
There was a couple of times when that, well, more than a couple of times when that actually happened.
Not everybody gets morning sickness. Sometimes months can go by before the mother gets any sense of the drama unfolding within her body. One milestone event takes place just 2 weeks after conception, when the blastocyst is about the size of a poppy seed. This is the moment when the cells start to organize themselves into an embryo. The process is called gastrulation. With animals like frogs, whose embryos develop inside transparent eggs, it's easy to see it in action. After the egg becomes a hollow ball of many cells, some cells dive into the center, forming layers, which will go on to develop into different organs. In humans, gastrulation happens deep inside the mother's uterine lining, so it can't be photographed. But we think it works something like this. The blastocyst creates two oblong bubbles, one on top of the other. Sandwiched between them is a thin layer of cells. These are the cells which one day may become a baby. At the beginning of gastrulation, some cells begin moving toward the center. Then they dive downwards, creating a new lower layer. More cells plunge through, squeezing in between, forming a third. The cells in the three layers may not look different, but for each layer, a very different future lies ahead. The lower cells are destined to form structures like the lungs, liver, and the lining of the digestive tract. The middle layer will form the heart, muscles, bones, and blood. And the top layer will create the nervous system, including the spinal cord and the brain, as well as an outer covering of skin and eventually hair. This is a human embryo 3 weeks after fertilization. Less than 1/10 of an inch long, its neural tube, the beginning of the nervous system, is already in place. A couple of days later, the top of the tube is bulging outwards on its way to becoming a brain. With the primitive brain cells exposed, we can see some are sending feelers, making connections to their neighbors. As the days pass, changes proceed at a rapid-fire pace throughout the embryo. Everywhere, cells are multiplying, and they're on the move. Some reach out to one another, forming blood vessels. A heart begins to beat. As the embryo lengthens, the precursor to the backbone forms. Groups of cells bulge out on the sides, the beginnings of arms and legs. This is the embryo 4.5 weeks after fertilization. It is only about 1/5 of an inch long. The primitive backbone now curls into a tail, which will disappear in a few weeks. The large brain is developing, and on the side of the head, an eye. How does this happen? How does the embryo transform itself from a blob of cells into different tissues and organs, and finally into a fully functional baby? The secret, of course, lies in your genes, in your DNA. Inside most every cell in your body, you have the same 46 chromosomes carrying the same genes. But not all the cells in your body are the same. Nerve cells, blood cells, cells lining your intestine, they all look different and they do different jobs. That's because in each of these cells, different groups of genes are turned on. And when a gene is turned on, it tells the cell to construct a particular protein. Proteins are the molecules that build your body. Like collagen, a fiber that makes up much of your skin, tendons, and bones. Or keratin in your hair. Crystalline is the protein that helps make the lens of your eye clear. Some proteins do work. Actin and myosin move muscle fibers. Hemoglobin in the blood carries oxygen from the lungs to the rest of the body. So when the embryo is developing, how does a cell turn on the right set of genes and create the right proteins? Part of the answer seems to be location. Once the basic body plan is established, with the head on one end, back and front, and left and right sides, cells seem to know exactly where they are and what they are supposed to become. This is because cells talk to each other in the form of chemical messages. Chemicals in one cell can trigger a reaction in the cell next door that can spread to the cell's nucleus and turn genes on or off. But what's really going on in there? How does a gene get turned on? If all the DNA in a single cell were stretched out, it would be about 6 feet long, but it's all wound up very tightly, coiled around balls of protein. For a gene to be turned on, something has to come in and loosen up the right section. Then the cell's machinery can latch on and read the DNA, the first step on the long road to building a protein. Those molecules that can turn genes on play a key role in every aspect of development, including the process that transforms the embryo into a boy or a girl.
We didn't want to know. We wanted to do it, I guess, the old-fashioned way.
Well, you kind of wanted to know. we did a wedding ring test where you took a piece of your hair and the wedding band and you hold it over the belly, and if it moves one way in a circle, then it's a girl. If it moves in a straight line, it's a boy. And that said it was a girl. And there was a point when we went into the ultrasound where I was waffling. It was like, well, we could look. At this very moment, we could look and we could find out. And
See, but I was trying to be
didn't say
strong because she
anything.
was very adamant about not.
I said, no.
By the time most ultrasounds are done, around 18 weeks or so, doctors can sometimes make out the sex. But in the early weeks, it's impossible. Take a look at a 7-week-old embryo. Try to guess what sex it is. Think it's a boy? Believe it or not, this is not a penis, at least not yet. It might become one, but it could just as easily turn into a clitoris, the female sex organ. At this stage, boys and girls look exactly alike, and not just on the outside. Inside, there are 2 gonads, which could become testicles or ovaries. And there are 2 sets of tubes, one in case it's a boy, the other for a girl. Of course, there's one way to tell the difference. Look at the chromosomes in a cell from the embryo. One pair among the 23 determines sex. An embryo with 2 X chromosomes usually becomes a girl. If one of those X's is a Y, it will most likely be a boy. Recently, scientists came up with a good idea of how this works. There are only about 30 genes on the Y chromosome. One of them is called SRY. This gene seems to function just once in a lifetime, late in the 6th week of embryonic development, and only in one place, the gonad. SRY turns on for a day or 2, and the cells churn out its protein. But in that short time, SRY sets off a chemical chain reaction, turning on other genes, eventually turning the gonads into testicles, which begin to make testosterone. Testosterone travels throughout the body. If it reaches the genitals, then the cells here will build a penis. But if there are 2 X chromosomes and no Y, different genes get turned on and the gonads become ovaries. The embryo becomes a baby girl. This is the power of genes, creating cascades of chemical reactions, defining the form and function of all the cells in your body. Sometimes genes send the message to multiply and grow, as with the arm and leg buds. Sometimes the message is to die, as it is a few days later to the cells between the fingers. As the weeks pass, the embryo's genes send billions of individual messages, constructing new kinds of cells and building organs and limbs. Two months after fertilization, the embryo is now called a fetus. Almost all its organs are in place, though they're not working yet. The whole fetus is just over an inch long and weighs less than 1/3 of an ounce. Over the next 6.5 months, it will grow almost 400 times larger and prepare for birth. All of this demands a constant supply of nutrients.
Serge was a little frustrated because he thought he was going to be able to go out and get me whatever I craved and whatever I wanted. And I had the problem of I didn't want anything or crave anything until I smelled it. And I had to smell my food before I would eat it. I could cook a whole meal. And if it didn't smell right when I was done with it, you know, just because I put the wrong spice in there or something, then I couldn't eat it.
Well, what about
This part could be difficult to get through.
this place here? Let's check out the menu.
No.
No?
No.
And we would go out on walks. They sometimes just around in the square, and
No.
No?
That's not gonna work.
she would have to smell it first. Just see what caught her fancy at that time.
Yeah.
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 As soon as it did, then that's where we would go.
And that lasted throughout my entire pregnancy.
How is it?
Garlicky, yum.
Baby likes it.
Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. I'm still like that. I still really want to smell my food. And if I smell something and I'm just like, oh, I have to have that, I have to have it now.
It's no surprise that Melinda might be especially hungry. The fetus she's carrying has only one source for all the raw materials it needs to grow into a baby. Melinda's blood, which is systematically raided with the help of the placenta. The placenta began to form as soon as the blastocyst burrowed into the mother's uterus. And in the early weeks, it dwarfed the embryo. The underside of the placenta is covered with thousands of tiny projections called villi, which lie in pools of the mother's blood. Without ever mixing the blood of mother and child, the villi grab oxygen and nutrients. The enriched blood flows about 1.5 feet through the umbilical cord back to the fetus, whose heart beats about twice as fast as an adult's. The heart is one of the few organs that actually work during the earliest weeks of development. But with other organs, function comes later. With the eye, although the retina and lens are well formed by the 9th week, the fetus doesn't respond to light until the 5th or 6th month. And the same for the ear. The outer ear quickly takes shape, but the fetus can't hear yet. Sound conduction relies on the tiny bones of the inner ear, and most of the bones in the fetus start out as cartilage. By the 4th month, hard bone can be seen forming in the hand and the leg. Finally, after 5 months, the process is complete in the inner ear. And then the fetus begins to hear sound.
I would sing songs right on her belly, just so that it could hear my voice and get to know my voice. But there was
And what else?
there was
And
one-
make whale noises?
yeah, that's-
At the park. They don't really care who's watching. They're in their own
one of
world.
the first times I did that, the baby seemed to move its hand across her belly and kind of touch my lips, or at least I like to think it was a hand saying hello or something.
And I even play music. You know, I wanted to see what would happen to what different kinds of music. And, you know, Mozart, it, you know, was mellow, kind of made some movements. And then I put salsa music in, and it's just started kicking, almost in rhythm. So it was great. It
Got a
was-
particular beat that it likes.
Yeah.
There's 3 of us dancing. This is the baby moving.
Inside Melinda's belly, a remarkable transformation has taken place. Starting
Okay, people, a warning here. We're going to do a recap and then there is a nude scene. So if you have children, you may not want them to see this. About 5 minutes.
with the moment egg and sperm met. Inside the womb, the first weeks are the most dramatic. Later in pregnancy, when the mother's body seems to be changing the most, life in the womb can appear, well, a bit uneventful. All the organ systems are in place, so during the last trimester, the fetus's main job is to grow. But a few crucial events are unfolding beneath the skin. Fat deposits are forming, building reserves the baby will rely on after birth. But even more importantly, fat is getting laid down in the brain. In the 6th month, genes in the brain order the manufacture of a fatty substance called myelin, which wraps around the long connections between brain cells. This fatty covering allows nerve impulses to travel up to 100 times faster, greatly enhancing brain power. The process will continue for years after the baby is born.
Okay, she is going to start going into labor now. Pay attention to the baby when it comes out, that squeeze the baby gets. It's going to have mucus coming out of the mouth and nose. This baby does have meconium. At some point, it had an insult and will have meconium. My guess is she pushed about 2.5 hours. They don't focus on that, but with the oxygen on and off. She's also doing natural labor. So her husband is the focal point.
Inhale. Come up.
The brain's hunger for fat in the last trimester puts an enormous strain on the mother.
Inhale.
Over the course of the pregnancy, her body has increased its own blood supply by about 50%, all for the sake of the rapidly growing baby. But late in pregnancy, the baby's need for fat becomes so great, the mother can't keep up. If it stays inside, the baby will begin to starve. Somehow, it's got to get out.
It's climbing back up now.
I've only had like one anxiety attack, and it was the moment I was in the bathroom and I just had the thought of like, how's this baby gonna get out? I just don't think it's gonna make it out. And I hadn't really thought about it up until that very moment where I was just like, no.
Giving birth is one of the most amazing experiences a woman can have. It can also be one of the most painful. Again and again, the uterus contracts as the cervix opens up. The tiny passageway that once allowed the entrance of a single file of sperm must now widen to about 4 inches to accommodate a baby's head. Human births are far more dangerous than those of other mammals or even other primates. The human brain is 3 to 4 times bigger than an ape's brain. And the pelvis is narrower to allow us to walk upright. A human baby has to go through considerable contortions to make it through the narrow opening. Sometimes there is simply not enough room. If that happens today, Melinda's baby can be delivered by cesarean section. But not long ago, before the rise of modern surgery, death was a common outcome for the baby and the mother.
can't help but feel a little guilty that I'm responsible for this.
You are.
But it's part of the natural cycle of life, and I just want to be there in any way that I can to support her through this whole process.
Because of the pain and danger of human labor, we regularly give birth in the presence of others. Today at 4:25 a.m., Melinda's parents, along with Sergio, will have the privilege of witnessing firsthand this extraordinary event, life's greatest miracle.
Good job. Okay, get another breath. Yeah, grab it again. Perfect. Oh, that's excellent. One more time. Quick breath and push it right down some more. Push down.
Push 6, 7.
Oh, good, good, good.
Oh, good.
Good job. Okay, stop that. Here we go. All right, a new life. Here we go. 4:25. All right.
We have a new sound.
Look at her.
Look at her little boy.
You're so handsome.
We've been wondering who you were. Yeah, we've been playing with you.
And they're at the park. Sweet family, though. That is a very loving thing to watch a mom and a dad so excited to see their baby. We put the baby across the mom like that. Mom and dad were talking to the baby. Baby knows the voice, the scent, the heartbeat of the mother, doesn't know her face. So when mom and dad start talking to the baby is attentive and listening, and that's when that bonding starts. You will be a little bit on the teary side if you see a mom and a dad teary when they have their baby. It's a very sweet, tender moment, and to watch life begin is pretty incredible. All right, peeps, is there any question for me at all? I'm going to scoot to get ready to go to graduation. That'll be you guys. And by the way, if you ever want to know when your graduation is, it is usually on the 3rd week of the following semester. So if you graduate December, which you all will, you will be the 3rd week in January is graduation. That's usually how they figure it. So, all right, peeps, if there's no questions for me, don't forget the test. Email me if you need me. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.